It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. The guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Kia ora, talofa lava, namaste, ni hao, g'day mate, and welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcasted weekly from a kitchen bench in Kingston, Auckland, New Zealand. My name's Lewis, and each week I aim to bring you what I loosely term creators and innovators. My guest this week very much fits both of those categories. He might be called a few other things: pioneer, early adopter, instigator, motivator, Mr. Mark Cubey. This is an interesting episode in that I nearly didn't air it, not for reasons of said guests' input and insight and entertainment in the interview, but because at my end I was a little hesitant perhaps about letting this one go forth, and I'll let you know why in a second. Scintillating. And I'll probably actually devote most of the intro this week actually to discussing the breaking the fourth wall and discussing the episode and some of the dilemmas I faced. But just quickly, if you remember last week, just after the intro, I suggested someone or some group of lovely creative people listening do a version or a cover or a remix or a dub or what are the other terms? Edit, a mashup, whatever the parlance is in your chosen genre and scene, of said intro. Listen, if you want to do one, that'd be absolutely fantastic. I don't know, live, electronic, crossover of both, semaphore Morse code, not sure. If you do want to knock something up, send it through to verbalhighs@gmail.com. Failing that, or the file being too big, of course, just send a message. And through the wonders of multimedia and technology and binary, we can find it on Dropbox or whatever. Now, I was thinking, if I get one, hell, that's amazing. Mike from Wellington, I'm looking at you. If I get more than one, I think it's time to get a wee sponsor, find a wee sponsor and organise a prize. Run a little competition, play them all perhaps. Audience votes, not sure. But if you are keen to get involved, verbalhighs@gmail.com. Now, to this episode and why I nearly didn't air it, related to why it's late, funnily enough, is that I organised with Mark Cubey, said guest this week, to chat to him yesterday. Woke up in the morning with searing pain in my face. Looked in the mirror. One side of it was okay, but the other side, Family Guy watchers, can only be described as a quagmire jawline. So feeling a little fevery as well, but not sick. So where do you go when that happens? The internet, not the doctor. WebMD, a few more windows open, and I think what I figured out was, which I probably already knew, was to do with the fact that I've neglected that side of my teeth for quite a while now, and I need to go to the dentist, which, by the way, Mark made me book today. So, phoned back this morning, as I promised I would, to confirm that I was okay for today, because I thought I was. We started the podcast, and I kind of, or at least in my head, I thought I wasn't my usual self in an interview capacity, or perhaps even in a day-to-day capacity. But then what happened from there is it was like when I briefly experimented with the marijuana at school, and that if that had been happening in the first 5 or 10 minutes, my brain quickly became convinced it was, and what followed was kind of an internal paranoia loop, which is, as I say, extraordinarily odd, particularly when you put me in front of a microphone or a crowd generally. So then I became worried that Mark was noticing that I was worried. What do you call it? A self-fulfilling prophecy. Whether Mark noticed any of this, I have no idea. So we got to the end, and instead of high fives and so on and etc., the first thing I said to Mark was, "Oh man, I'm sorry, man," which was probably a strange finish to having done such a thing. So then I dropped him off, and then I came home, still convinced the episode had to be canned. Yeah, the episode's different, but it is still of, as I say, broadcast, of podcast quality. What is different, and regular listeners will probably spot this without me mentioning it, is what eventuated from all the madness that happened in my head is much more of a traditional interview style exchange, where I've been very pointed in labelling these podcasts a conversation from the start. So using kind of the framework of an interview, jotting a couple of things down, but kind of just seeing where they go. So what eventuated and what you'll hear today is very much a bio of Mark's background, achievements and projects over the years, and a little interjection from me. And you know what? I kind of like it. And I'm curious to hear feedback on it, because I know at the beginning some guests hadn't heard long-form conversational style podcasts and were used to a more of a short question, long answer. What it also leaves the door open for with myself and Mr. Cubey is typically it would have been and we probably would have gone through about 8,000 different topics and perhaps not covered a lot of him specifically. It actually opens the door for something I've thought about for a while, which is, and it relied on having a number of episodes actually, which is having guests back if they're into it. So I think Mark and I will do another one down the track. We can talk smack about media, music, old school Wellington, perhaps cooking, all that good stuff. So the intro now, also a different approach, either an inside-out-esque insight into the mind of another, or the worst possible idea I ever had.
This is Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. I mean, we can touch on that, but that's not really, you know?
No, that's
I mean,
right.
you know.
Hey!
But we can range.
We can do what we want.
I go all over the place.
We can talk about cooking for half an hour if we want.
Cooking. Oh,
Remember the stand-up cookery thing?
yeah.
Your brief sojourn as a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, we could start with that.
Okay, we can put that somewhere. But what we will touch on with Luke, as you said, Mikey told some of the story differently, and that was real fun when I had...
Yeah.
What's his name when I had MCOJ in first?
Oh, right. Okay.
And we had a great chat. And then Slave coming in was kind of a fun part too, where he had his perspective on...
Well, people, I think memory is a funny thing, and people remember stuff so differently.
Totally.
Yeah. And or you tailor the past. You tailor history to suit yourself.
Well, that's right.
Donald
You'd
Trump.
like to think people...
So
people are telling the truth.
We'll get into some, alternative facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll introduce to you formally.
Uh-huh.
This is the most structured bit of the podcast.
All right, so you don't add this on later?
No, it's at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to make you feel...
They go on really long time.
They do. Some of them are pages and pages and pages.
Good.
I just got the highlights. And then at the end you can tell me anything I've missed, because I would have.
All right.
My guest has just finished spending 10 years producing Kim Hill on Radio New Zealand, obviously, Saturday mornings. Founded Loop magazine, managed Radioactive for a period, edited Salient magazine, which for those of you who don't know is Wellington's student rag. Do they even exist anymore, student rags? Founded the Uncut Funk Show, which eventually turned into the Wednesday Night Jam, which is a little, I guess its little tagline is it's the longest running hip-hop show in New Zealand. Has written for well-known publications including NBR. I will call a pioneer, early adopter and early instigator, Wellington's Mark Cubey. Good afternoon.
Kia ora.
So, did I miss anything?
Yeah, but I never wrote for NBR. I was just proofreader there. That was after Salient. So, this is how things used to be. You'd go down to the NBR office and there'd be journalists like Warren Berryman, who was a reporter, not a journalist. Yeah. Do you know the difference? Well,
to me, a reporter would hopefully study journalism like everyone else, but they would briefly report the facts for maybe page 1, page 2. A journalist perhaps gets more into investigative pieces, perhaps writes op pieces maybe. I don't know, am I right?
Close. Reporter kind of goes out and finds out what's going on and comes back and says, okay, here's what happened, right. Here's the dirt, bloody, bloody, blah. And it may be bloody spelt and badly constructed and whatever, but they have the how do you say that word? Hones.
I've never heard that. Hones?
Cajones, balls.
Cajones.
They got the balls to go out and actually front people and do the digging and risk of life and blah, blah. So they bring back what is, a collection of real facts that need to be put into a proper story, which, they'll write their version. The sub-editor will turn it into newspaper prose, and then it came down the line to the proofreaders.
But where's the journalist in this? You just broke everything I knew about journalism.
The journalist is the sub-editor, man. The sub-editors rule. They're the ones that turn it into a
contentious.
Put the most important part at the start, because people might not get past the start.
They're most important in the UK when they write those amazing headlines for trash rags. Yeah,
there you go. Because what is it? Most people only read the headlines.
That's right.
Yeah, thank God politicians love that. So the proofreading aspect, you've got someone with, this is before it's even typeset or anything, you've got someone with, in those days, A5 piece of paper, which is half an A4 for those of you who don't know that kind of stuff. Paper, people still have printers, I guess. Yep. A5 piece of paper in landscape mode with typed double-spaced a paragraph or a couple of sentences on it. And you'd have that, and the other person would have a duplicate, and you'd read it, and the other person would check it as you read, and then and then
someone subs the sub.
That's right, and then it goes to the typesetter, and then you get the galleys back, all in the nice designed typographical font format, and you do the same thing again and go through, and one person reads it and the other person checks the copy to make sure it's been input correctly.
Yep.
Then you swap and you do it again, and hopefully that's good.
Then
it goes to the paste up, and it all gets pasted up on the page, and then the stone sub, the stone, not the stoned sub, although we have known that to happen, comes through and just checks again, and often finds things that have missed everybody. And by the end of that, you've got a newspaper that's fit to print and hopefully doesn't, and mistakes still get through. But now it's just like
I was going to get to that.
Some guy on the web putting all their stuff up and getting everything wrong, and typos galore and bad grammar, and who cares, because you can change it instantly on the web.
Well, I think there's people that care, but I think with those big organisations there's such a race, because you're not on an old school, once or twice a day for a deli, or however often the NBR came out. Weekly. It's that if the Herald, and who would their competitor be really in New Zealand? Stuff, I guess. They've got to get stuff up a minute before the other one, so that's where you get all the crazy errors and so on. I don't even think they wouldn't even have a subbing process for that kind of speed. Would they?
Well, there's no time, and this obsession with breaking news, where
it's an obsession for clicks, really.
Well, it is that, and this thing to be first. I mean, it's nice to be first, but it's better to be correct and best always.
So I don't want to spend too long on NBR, but I'd imagine it was a reasonably... I've done subbing different places, and I'd imagine NBR would, unless you're a real kind of business news, would get a little dreary in terms of your creativity with headlines and reading that stuff.
Oh, no. No, because the goal is to make it fun and interesting,
totally.
For smart people who like that stuff. And if you read The Economist, I don't know if you know The Economist, which, even though it looks like a magazine, describes itself as a newspaper, some of the headlines and photo captions they have are just genius, and it's this is serious stuff, but you can still have fun. Well,
The Economist is an example of, I like the way you said, have you heard of it? It's the same, right. So it's not really my largest passion, I guess, kind of business and economic news and so on. But like New Scientist years ago, it's one of those things I will pick up and kind of read an article out of.
Yep.
Now, you early on, because you're kind of, I guess, your approach to work and so on is. You kind of jump to different projects and so on. I said you're an early adopter. You've got particularly good communication skills, which have lent themselves to each of these projects succeeding. Where did this come from? Is it family? Is it schooling? Like when someone's into music, they say, "Oh, an older brother had this record," and so on. Like, where did this media thing kind of come from earlier on?
I don't know, really. I just. The job I'm doing now, which is running the writers program for the New Zealand Festival, March 2018, next year, 12 months out, it seems really weird to be working to that kind of deadline. I've always been, I just read everything,
Yep.
Back in the day when, I'd read books. If I'd run out of library books, I'd read the newspaper.
Right.
The death notices, which used to be, they used to have the births and the death notices on the bottom half of the front page of the Evening Post, and I just read everything. I'd read the labels off the Vegemite jars just to see what was there.
So you're training from an early age without realising it's every style of writing.
That's right.
Journalism, copy,
short form, advertising, whatever. And always was into music. The parents had interesting recorded music collection, 78s and 33s, LPs, and some 45s. So. And I guess music and reading all kinds of media, and even though most of the stuff you go on, it's kind of boring as it was, and then listening to the radio.
So what did they do? Your parents? What did they do?
Oh, okay. Mum was a scientist. She's trained as a scientist.
Yep.
One of the early women who went to Victoria University.
Yep.
Back in the day when that wasn't such a thing. Studying scientists and worked in the hospital doing stuff like that, and then went on her OE.
Also, kind of unusual back then. Not so many OEs being taken like now.
Yeah, no. Well, that was a thing in the family. My grandmother and her 3 friends. Do you know the Austin A30?
I do, actually, yeah.
Okay, so that for the benefit of the listeners who do not, you can Google, but it's a small 4-seater, really, car with 3-speed, clutch and all that kind of stuff, and really, it's tiny. The boot is you could fit the boot would hold one of those suitcases that you're allowed to take as cabin baggage.
Right, so one carry-on for 3 people.
Pretty much. Anyway. So they brought this car back to New Zealand because you could, that was the only way of getting cars in here in those days. This is, long before I was born. But they travelled all across Europe in this car.
3 young women?
4.
4?
Yeah.
See, that's radical.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so, I guess it's in the family. But, yeah, so Mum was, scientist and went to the UK and met Dad, and he'd been... brought up in London and within spitting distance of Wembley Stadium. Well, it wasn't a stadium back then; it was just Wembley grounds, I guess. Yeah. And the war came along, the Second World War, and you go to war. And
he went,
and his
came back, which is always good.
It was always good. Well, no, and his brother didn't come back, and his none of his friends, all died. And he served in. North Africa and then Burma, leading a division of Gurkhas.
Yep.
With his, and we've still got the Gurkha kukri, which is like this curved, evil-looking sword, which is a young person you always want to get down off the wall and play with, in mock fights. So he war finished and he went, stayed in the army, got married, not to Mum, and his wife got cancer, I think, and died suddenly. And then he joined the Air Force, and how it happens in war. Yep. If you survive, you get promoted reasonably quickly because they run out of folk. So he ended up relatively senior in the Air Force, and met my mother
here or in the UK?
No, in the UK. This was the second time I think she went over, and
so she's a as you say, unusually, not unusual, but there are less women than now being educated in New Zealand. She went and studied science and so on. Was he what you call kind of working class British?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And he was
so an interesting match even there.
Yeah, and he was interested. He'd done drumming, and liked had crazy fun like we all do. And her family, long-term Karori, at one time the largest suburb in Wellington and actually New Zealand. Her side of the family, the Hildreths, go way back into in Karori. In fact, I think my great-grandfather or my great-grandfather was the mayor. They had a mayor of Karori back in those days. So there's that heritage. And so she met Dad in London and got together, and they he got stationed to Malta, and I came along. And
you were born in Malta?
I was born in Malta.
Wow.
Valletta
Does
Hospital
that mean you can get
Malta.
a passport from Malta?
No, I don't think so.
You can get a British passport, though.
No, well, I could. I decided not to when I had the opportunity. And now, who cares? Because, hey, Brexit. So, yeah, but they were back. I mean, I was there. I was born there, but we were back. Everyone was back in New Zealand by the time I was around 6 months old, travelling by ship, as you always do. And apparently I just didn't sleep or I just cried, and it was a complete pain for the whole voyage.
3 weeks or something?
No. Months. It took ages.
Man.
I don't know how long, but, weeks, and probably not months, weeks. And then, ended up here, and he didn't have he came back over here without a job. And
didn't want to join the military here?
No, I've probably had enough of that, I never got to talk to he died when I was 17. I never got to talk to him about all that army stuff.
Of that generation where they don't really talk about a lot anyway.
You wouldn't, you know? I mean, I guess I didn't see any signs of it, but, there would have been PTSD. But
totally, but before it was even recognised.
They didn't even know, so, yeah.
So two things, a generation, I've thought about a lot about this with different people I've talked to. A generation of men kind of taught not to communicate anyway, probably wouldn't get this far into a podcast, combined with the psychological damage of war. It's an interesting combination.
Yeah, come around again. No worries.
So what did he find to do here?
Well, he just he didn't have any work, so he ended up getting a job emceeing and demonstrating apple pie making for this touring, it's like AMP type touring roadshow thing around the country for the Apple and Pear.
So was he a raconteur, or is that how he got the job?
No, he could talk. We can all talk, and so they got this job with the Apple and Pear board, and they liked what he did and offered him another job, and he ended up general manager.
Wow. So head of kind of big fruit guy in New Zealand.
Big fruit guy, yeah. And nepotism rules, because one of the best jobs of my early life was being Mr. Apple.
Oh, like a sports mascot?
No, well, you put on this giant fiberglass apple head, which you sweat like a pig.
Did people know it was you? Did you?
No. Well, there were several of us, because you'd have these Mr. Apple, and they go out with this flower, bright green bell bottoms and a flowery shirt, and you go into malls and supermarkets and talk, do this little 20-minute spiel by the time...
Kids pushing you over?
No, kids running away in fear. And, just doing this spiel about how good apples are, getting paid $25 a day. And
What era is this? That would have been good money.
This is the 70s.
Yeah, and you were like teens?
A school job, yeah.
Great money.
Yeah. And then the regional manager would take you to the pub, underage, and you'd have 2 beers and get really tanked and wake up in the morning feeling shit.
2 ciders.
Yeah, 2 ciders.
So you went to Wellington High, which even when I went a few years later was kind of considered a radical move by some more closed-minded Wellingtonians. Was that your choice, or because I'm right, it was a school that was kind of blemished in a lot of people's minds.
Wellington High School was the old Wellington Technical College. Okay, so it still had the image of being, where you went if you weren't academically gifted, because those kids went to Wellington Girls or Marsden Collegiate or Queen Margaret's College if you were female, or Wellington College if you were,
That's right,
smart boy, or if you're out east and a bit rough, Rongotai,
I think for some people it wasn't even a bit rough. It was just the college you went to in our neighbourhood if you were from there.
Exactly.
I could have got there in 20 seconds and gone to school there for 5 years, but I know from friends that I just would not have fit in. Rongotai is actually, just to give it credit now, not to defame it, I've heard from parents.
No, that's
as
right.
has society has changed. Apparently it's got a great drama department now. It's got a great art department. Still encourages rugby, but not the prison it used to be. As a good friend of mine used to write on his books till his parents transferred him to Wellington High.
The strapping principle. Yeah, no, I think there's only 600-700 kids there, so that's good.
Yeah,
that's
right.
good size when you think about what's happening in Auckland with schools.
So
anyway,
choice,
high school. Yeah. Well, it was a combo really.
Yeah.
We had a great primary school experience. I was originally Mum and Dad helped set up Matauranga School, which Jeff Marsland, Tim Rose, Jeremy Rose, myriad others, or everyone who's gone on to do really interesting stuff. attended, and as what would be now seen as kind of like a charter school, in that it was, you know, it was privately funded, and a radical approach to education where play was predominant, working off the play centre model, and you know, you'd work around. It was funny. I
Still going?
Well, you know what they're doing in Finland now. They just came out this week where they're for the older students. They're saying now we're not going to have subjects. We're just going to focus on issues and work around that. So you'll integrate your maths and your science.
Yeah.
So
problem solving on
absolutely. So that kind of principle. And I was there as one of the original pupils for just about a year, and then Dad got transferred to Nelson briefly. I hated Nelson school. The beaches were good, but the school was terrible. Came back to Wellington, and because we'd moved... we were in the same house, but my sister also went there, and my younger brother was there, and it just became too hard to negotiate the trip across town to Moncrief Terrace, where it was in Mount Vic from our home.
Oh, so you could go all the way through to 7th form there?
Oh, you went, you could.
Yeah,
but I left early and went to...
So based on that story alone, I'm just going to cut in quickly. Based on that story alone, you couldn't have fit into any other college in Wellington. It had to be Wellington High or Onslow.
I probably could have.
Yeah.
But no, I went to a state school, Karori normal school, and largely great time there, particularly forms 1 and 2 years, 7, 8 as they call them now. With a great teacher. We did school trips and, you know, went to Marae and all sorts of terrific stuff. So when the time came to decide about college, you know, all of the boys in Form 2 pretty much were going to Wellington College or a couple to Scots, and all of the girls were going to Wellington Girls or a couple to Marsden and Queen Mag's. But myself, my best friend Mark Young, Richard Walter, who's now a respective anthropology professor down in Otago, despite being a complete long-haired rebel for most of his teenage school years, to the extent that, you know, he got 3% for his maths school certificate because he just went in and signed his name. Didn't conform at all, but hey, brainy as. And Christopher Thompson, I think that was the four of us, went to High. Yeah. Because it was, you know, it still had a uniform, unlike Onslow still had a uniform then, but it was co-ed, and it was just, you know, this was the start of the 70s, and there was a movement in the air that was, you know, something in the air about that. So, and it was fortunate because around the city, other parents were thinking the same, and the kids, you know, we got. I said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, the high school looks good to me." Yeah.
It was one of the greatest 5 years in my life. Some people talk about this horrible college experience I had and so on. I loved it. You know, I got a lot out of that school. Yeah. Would you say the same? I figure you would.
I think so. But again, I did really well in the third form. You realise that the studies and the exams always came easy to me because it's a technique, right?
Well, also, if you've mastered written communication and so on, and you can cram a little bit of study, yes, you are at a distinct advantage to many students going in. Yeah.
And now being able to write for 3 hours with your hand, I mean, it's criminal that they're making children do that today. Right. It's just wrong. It's wrong. You know, why can't they type on a computer?
It's funny you're saying square pegs, round holes. I listened to Jeff Marsland chat on Radio New Zealand, which was one of the most entertaining things I've heard in a while.
It was good.
I don't know if you know, he put a book out.
I set that up before I left.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great book.
So back to Wellington High, and it's loose. How would I say it? Probably more. You could probably extend a longer bow there before you were expelled. And he chatted about how he was expelled at 14 from Wellington High. But, you know, again, one of those people that didn't fit into the education system, and went for a wander down the docks. I don't know if his dad got pissed off with him or whatever, and he got supposedly kicked out of home for a while. He
shaped his head to be like a punk. And no punk at my house.
A sign of the era, because this probably would never happen now. Some guy on a boat, "Hey kid, what are you up to?" And Jeff reckons he said, "Oh, blah 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 blah, just been kicked out of school." And then he said, "Well, you come work on the boat, I'll pay you." And that's how Jeff, in a long way short, discovered coffee, and that's why there was coffee in Wellington, because he ended up on the boats for years and years and years.
I know. It's dramatic stuff. And funnily enough, okay, so
the punchline to that is I agree, not everyone needs to go through that style of education. Some people actually, it's better for them to...
Oh, and it's the stuff around school. You know, it's the social aspects and the people you meet. And we in the Form 1 and 2, right, we at Korea Normal School, we had actually started a radio station with a tape recorder and a microphone. 3 of us, me, Gary Lewis, I think possibly David Bryce, who ended up a big noise at ZM and those lot, and Martin Fine, possibly. So just recording stuff, playing a bit of music and editing it together and playing it. That transferred to, by the time we got to Wellington High, setting up a radio station.
On level 3?
And broadcasting to the
level
quad.
3? Okay. There was one there when I got there, yeah.
With a big speaker out, and we had like about 5 records, and you just play what you had and inflict your taste on the populace. But so that thing of setting stuff up, and I loved. Totally. I did lots of drama stuff and loved the theatre show, and I've been doing drama for all my life really. And so exams easy, but you just realise that this thing's it's easy enough to score by, and then you start having fun and get into trouble.
So are you a straight to Vic Uni after school guy, or did you take some years off?
No, I did. Foolishly, I thought I didn't know what to do, so I took 7th form fine art prelim.
Yeah,
my brother's the artist, not me. I was kind of lazy and distracted, and it was just another way to, not have to do anything and hang out with people and have fun and drink and smoke and don't come home, late. All that kind of malarkey. But yeah, so I failed that after succeeding in everything, and then I thought, better knuckle down, and for want of anything else better to do, which I think happens, went to Victoria University to do mixed of classics and
a classic Vic
English.
BA, a classic Vic BA.
Yeah, English. History was Dr. James Bell. Or maybe he would have been a doctor.
Who taught me
James
as well.
Bellish.
Yeah, fantastic guy.
Good, and some really good minds there.
Did you finish?
Nah, well, I did a year, and I just got fucked off with the other students more than and just the environment. It was kind of sad, and no one would talk in tutorials. You'd be all there talking, everyone's scribbling down notes. You think, oh, great, I'm doing all your work for you.
So like me, because I know the salient thing and so on, and so I always sort of say to myself, people go to broadcasting school now and whatever, great. I finished my BA, but really what I took from those 3 years up there was I kind of did a what would you call it, an unofficial broadcasting degree by finding Active and Death Till Dawns and so on. Is that how it happened with you with Salient and so on?
Yeah, do the work. But, I that year, 76, I was part of a group who were thinking about starting a radio station.
Oh, it hadn't started yet?
It hadn't started. Yeah. No, it hadn't started. So there was all this talk, and they came up with the name Radioactive. Roy Torres was there, and a few other legends who have gone on to do other things. Largely, but by 77, I had applied to get into drama school and didn't get in.
Yeah,
and I just thought, I don't want to do university another year, and applied for a cadetship at Radio New Zealand. And got in, and this was a thing where they bring people from all around the country. Karen Hay was one of the intake, and other folk. And you got to work in the copywriting and putting bits of tape together,
a taster of broadcasting,
and selecting horrible Mantovani music for the music part of National Radio. Oh man, and going around thinking, I might get a chance of being an announcer, but like everyone. But hey, not with this voice. And at the end, the course ended, and they said, well, we can give you a job writing copy for ZB and ZM and making ads. And
they sussed you could write, or they just said, hey kid, we've got a gap.
We've got a gap. And so I was the junior in that department and learnt how to touch, touch type with 4 fingers, I'll never touch type because it's too late now.
I don't know how. I wrote a PhD with fast 2, maybe 4 fingers. Yeah.
And I made some great ads and working with the likes of your Dick Weirs and John Hoods and
So you'd left uni by then, and you'd effectively, if you'd been a lifer, I assume you could have stayed at Radio New Zealand. People were talking about...
No, I applied again for drama school and got into drama school. And then I had 2 years at drama school. We'll condense this part of it. 2 years at drama school. Yeah,
we're getting a little bit...
Say that for something else. 2 years at drama school, went overseas, went to London, did bar work and just got depressed and hated it. Caught a Greyhound back across the States, arrived back in the Christmas of 1981, having missed the tour, and thought, I'm sick of messing around. I mean, I did interesting stuff in the UK, film course and stuff. I'll go back to Vic and do film studies and history and American.
Did you major in film studies?
They didn't have that. There.
We're just we're very similar trajectories here. Yeah. So you decided to finish the BA?
No, well that was the idea. But then I wanted.
Do you think you might have been one of those kids who'd be medicated? It sounds like you've kind of made the most of.
Oh, sorry, but I thought, oh no, Salient. Okay, I hadn't really considered Salient before, but I took in a couple of reviews I'd written to Mark Wilson, the editor, and he encouraged me and said, "Oh, look, if you're at a loose end, come on a Friday night when we're putting the magazine together, and you can help proofread and do all the layout and help with that technical stuff." And wandered in there, and the rest pretty much is history. And at that stage, Active was going. 82 was the first year that they broadcast. Well, the first station in New Zealand to broadcast
FM,
first station FM, but it wasn't continuous. So they would have blocks of the year where they were on and off. So it's very intermittent. And I did a few things, looked at that, did a few things, but didn't really get into that until the year following when I became editor by dint of end of 82. Have you thought about being the editor? I thought. No, but I am now, and did the interview with the board and got in, and
how long were you there?
So start at the top is always my premise. Right. Start at the top.
So
saves time.
So how long were you there?
At Active.
No, at
Salient.
Salient.
2 years. So I edited for 83, and then Sally Zwartz got the editorship the year following, and I...
Did you kind of have... Were you an editor where, and I'd hope so with student media in particular, where you could really shape the colour and the content of the... what you wanted to be in there, or did you have...
Oh, totally.
Did the board kind of breathe down your neck about certain stuff?
No. And I got sued, my first issue, I got sued.
What for?
Defamation.
From?
A Jewish student. It's not what you're thinking. It's not what you're thinking.
It wasn't related to their faith.
No. And it was one of those things where it was the Zionists. Everyone was pro-Palestine. Well, all the lefties were pro-Palestine. The Zionists weren't, and da-da-da. Anyway, so it's an unfortunate incident. But I got to meet Hugh Rennie, who was a former editor of Salient and the VUWSA, Victoria University of Wellington Students Association lawyer. And copyright, defamation law. Oh, that's good. Good to know.
Good to know early on.
And after that, there was smooth sailing. But also because I'd come back, because I missed the tour, I could see how important it was to New Zealand society.
You could probably see a bit of a different New Zealand when you came back as well.
Hey, Muldoon won. Didn't win the popular vote.
From then, what I'm interested in is, up until Kim, which we'll get to later, it's been a kind of a series of shorter gigs compared to how some people run their careers, I guess. But I've mostly seen you, or perhaps always seen you, in roles where you either come and start something and are pioneering with it, or as the case when you did Active for a couple of years as manager, you kind of come in and radically reshape it or whatever. So why didn't you kind of stick at things in terms of you'd have these kind of quite successful projects, they get to a point and then you'd kind of move on. Is it that kind of personality you've described, where it's like you'd get say scope to a point and move on and so on, or
no? I think you go into it's like I went into the RNZ thing saying, hey, this could be fun, this could be a career, and then you go, actually I don't want to end up like the other people just writing ads for Selwyn Too Good and mattresses and
career public service.
And it was stifling. All right, so and I can go to drama school, and 2 years great drama school, but then where are the jobs? Where are they? Just they're doing the same boring old plays or in provincial theatres. No, that's not me. Did a bit of theatre in the parks, summer projects.
So one of
when they used to pay people to be artists.
So in other words, you realise that drama school, perhaps it's one of those things where a very small percentage go on to be career actors in the sense of, you know, large scale things. Others just do sort of stuff you didn't want a life of.
Well, no, and I think things are different now.
Yeah,
you know, we had a young man come round to shift some boxes because my arm was playing up on the weekend, and there were like 60, 70 large boxes full of books that needed moving because... Yeah. Oh, it's a long story. Anyway, so he's doing circus skills, and so he's, you know, got circus muscles, which is good. And he's doing his last year at Toi Whakaari. And, you know, I said, so what do you plan to do? He said, my friend is setting something up in Auckland, you know, and I'm just going to go up there. Now you can set your own gig going and make it happen. Well, even, like you're doing with this podcast.
Even now, I've thought about that too. It's less radical to tell your parents you're going to do something creative rather than a traditional vocation. I think parents are more open to it.
But you don't have to wait for the opportunities to arise necessarily. It's better to go and do your own thing. Right. So it's, you know, always I'm kind of drawn towards that.
So back to first thing after Salient, because I think it was a bunch of sort of getting here for a while.
Well, Salient, I did the commercial. So 83 Salient, 84 ran the commercial typesetting business, which was kind of like apart from advertising, to keep the business at least not totally subsidised, and that was successful. Learnt how to, you know, do all that kind of stuff. And then did a mixture of NBR, freelance writing and stuff for On Film and other magazines, reviews, etc. And then Mark Wilson, who, you know, was the editor when I walked in 82, we ended up flatting together. He'd been working at NBR as a sub and then got a job at The Listener as a sub, just a little bit ahead of me. And he was leaving The Listener, sub-editorial position, so I went for that and got that. And then
was it one of those things where you were like, this is completely out of my reach, but I'll go for it? Or
hell no, it's just good. Like, oh man, that was possibly the best job I've ever had in my life.
Right.
You'd be...
Well, The Listener was...
it was public service,
but also it was an essential...
It was the Bible of the week for, you know,
and in every house,
in every house, radio, TV listings. Back when you'd have, I could almost still relate all the names of the kids on the Cosby Show, you know, because I just would check them every week.
Such a generational shift. I have one person left in my life who will still look at the newspaper or The Listener or similar and go through and kind of circle what's on the 3 or 4 channels. Refuses to have... Actually, his quote was that his bookshelf had more in it than the bloody internet did. Just lives in that old broadcast world where there's 3 channels and nothing else in one newspaper. It seems so far out and far away now.
2 channels.
Well, yeah, that's right. There were 2 in my life too, but yeah.
Anyway, so that was a great job because, you know, on some days you'd be finished all your work by 10 o'clock in the morning. And
then what? Pretend to...
I just hang around and annoy people, you know, as a sub, because I was fast. I was really fast. I was really good, and I had an eye for design, you know. And I think that's something you either you have it or you don't. And honestly, now these kids today with their buddy MacBook Pros and, you know, all the software that you can download for free. Why do things still look so ugly, man? It's just
because it's in everyone's hands. But so everyone, I know what you mean. I think there's still people around who have it and so on, but I think there's just more people able to put stuff out, so we see more crap. Whereas to use that sort of technology even 10, 15 years ago, you had to know someone, you had to crawl over broken glass or whatever, so you had to be really keen to do stuff. I just think we see wheat and chaff now. Because,
that's right, and there's always more eyes looking at stuff, and you know, it was public service, it was well resourced, and so anyway, sub-editing was good, it was fun, but you know, it was too easy. And then I took over the Films on TV column from Douglas Jenkin and wrote that, you know, basically alternative facts, making stuff up and cribbing, and you know, just because you can't, you know, there's no way to watch all those films.
Wouldn't they have a copy of them if they're going to telly for you to watch?
No, but how long would it take? You know,
an hour and a half.
No, but you've got how many films a week?
I don't know. They used to have a lot back then.
A lot back then. Yeah, right. So it's just hard. Anyway, so that was, you know, I was earning really good money, and it was really easy, but it was too easy. And then I got I got into computers around that time. In terms of Mark, who I was flirting with, had bought one of those ones, not an Apple, but with a black screen with green type on it. Like you see the thing.
I don't even think they were branded then.
No,
a terminal.
Terminal illness. And I'd worked on Apple IIs, and then when my friend Michael Lockhart, who I'd met at Salient, he was working at a printers, and we got together and thought, Macintosh's desktop publishing, and
very pioneering for anything written then, because you need way less computing power compared to graphics or whatever for it to be a huge change for you. So I guess it changed everything.
It did, and I could see how this was going to work, even though it was tiny little screen, 4 shades of grey, 100, an external floppy disk hard drive of 120k storage,
But radically different to how you'd been doing
stuff.
Look,
and I'd been at the Listener where you'd go in on these huge machines to do a tiny little, like taking out the acne on Susan Devoy's face for the cover of the magazine, with what would have, people would think Photoshop now, but it was a, highly expensive $100,000 type of thing. And, you'd be paying $120 an hour for this stuff to happen. And I could see that, we're starting off with text here with the Macintosh and the laser printer, which is the other side of the equation, and PageMaker software. That this is
huge machines, very, very little memory compared today.
Yeah, so they were still expensive to buy, but in terms of a startup business that you could compete on 2 of the 3 core elements of any business, speed, quality, and price. You might not have the quality, but you could do the other 2.
So I'm listening. So you started a company independent to start doing print and so on solutions?
Yeah, just desktop publishing, and we got in to a company called Image Design, who had a room spare and sat there waiting for work to come in, playing Dark Castle.
So there's a great example, Mark. I feel like if you were just on a most basic level a businessman, which it sounds like you were, and you could spot new stuff as it came along. It sounds like if you'd stuck at that, that could have been a wealthy and long-term career.
Well, we did. We did. We did. It was, and Michael's more of a business head than I, and it was, it was hard work slugging against it. But you build up, and then it's one of those things where we looked like we had a really good deal in terms of amalgamating 2 companies and putting it all together, and then some people got cold feet and walked away, and you spent all this money on lawyers and stuff, and it's just it got messy, and you walk away,
and so we're next
and start again. But it did allow me to keep doing things like the jam and that, because you had lots of money available to buy records. Yeah. Which were expensive, and also to do things like RAD, which was the Radioactive Digest. Because
so you started that magazine too?
That was just Active was the publisher, Radioactive was the publisher, but we put it all together and sold the ads and did it for kind of like it was a fun thing to do. It wasn't a money making thing to do. This was when people like Cristiano Colano and Anya Bovic were working for us, and Jeremy Jones working for us, and doing stuff with the commercial work to keep the fun, to keep these fun side projects viable, because you can't make money. So did that, and Jim Scott was involved in that, and then Jim, Michael, and I came up with to take it to the next level, and did Scope magazine, which was
which to me, because I was high school then, so I distinctly remember it.
Yeah, that was the one.
I'm not saying the exact content, but I guess it had a kind of Vice approach, which was kind of radical back then. We weren't seeing stuff on the internet like we did now, and to me it was quite a radical kind of read, and also quite radical visually. Was it a strange publication to do in the kind of New Zealand media environment, or?
Well, it was free. So it was free and was Wellington. We sent stuff off, and there were the real successful ones around, were coming out of Auckland, like Planet and
But it did have some quite, perhaps at the time, questionable content occasionally, didn't it, for a free mag?
What, you mean like running anagrams of people's names, like Lana Cockcroft as Anal Cockford?
So why didn't you think about taking it to Auckland? I mean, it must be hard publishing in Wellington.
Because it was kind of like a side project, and it was Jim's baby, really, yeah. and just a lot of work.
Just you guys having fun.
And trying to make it happen, and ends up chewing up all your off our time, and you're trying to have, when you could be at home having fun with whoever you're with, and and losing money and just too hard, really. And in that environment, I think you've just got to be. You can't be weird and quirky and stuff. You've got to have your mainstream stuff and stick to it. And that's not the kind of person that any of us were.
So was it perhaps too radical for the time as well?
Oh no, it was just it's just.
So you said a side project to what? What else was?
Well, we were doing the typeset. We were doing the colour bureau stuff. We were doing that business side of things, and but good things to do.
You got to Active. I think. Well, I know you've always had involvement with it, but I think you started managing there late 90s.
Yeah.
In between, roughly after the print company and so on, what were the projects through there?
Oh, I know. There was a while when I wasn't doing anything. I was just hanging out
nice
at the parents' batch at Makara by the river and living in a one bedroom thing and
pondering.
One of those long drop type toilets and and a goat and just.
So I remember you were around Active.
Oh no, I went after the colour bureau stuff all went apart. I went and worked for Van der Rohe Design, which was one of the top agency places as production manager for them, which is just a terrible job because the suits will swear that they can deliver it on a certain time, and there's just no way that's going to happen. But but we'll pay you more money. Oh, great! So we've got to work.
You also don't strike me as a kind of cog in a bigger organisation like that as well.
No, I ended up arguing with people and not making myself popular. Yeah,
someone somewhere or somehow convinces you to actually take over managing Active after it had a difficult time.
Peter Dickens and co came in and he was leaving and I'd finished the jam by that stage, passed it on to Raw and Reese and those guys. I'd been doing Devil's Advocate Talkback with the late Gerald Dwyer and Jeff Marsland and trying to fill 2 hours with...
Was Jeff a host?
He was briefly.
He'd call in as a character, wouldn't he?
No, that was his brother, Mike.
Oh, that was Mike. Canton,
yes.
Look,
and again, it's just... I've got the mags right, but I don't have any recordings of the jam. I don't have stuff of Devil's Advocate. It's all gone, man.
Well, how long did I do Active shows, including Full Time Breakfast? Yeah, I've got a box of tapes about that small. It's amazing.
That's it.
But I think with that sort of thing,
I think it's
you're
good
just doing it
because people will remember it as being better than it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, I think part of you just doing it is not thinking to do that. You just do it.
Oh, you're just doing it, and this is life, and it will not last. And you're young.
So talk back on Active.
So I was in and around the station, believed in what they were doing, could see the problems, and I didn't have anything that I was doing. So when the job of general manager came up, I thought, I can see a way to make that work and turn that around. Because as a DJ, as a presenter, announcer, DJ, whatever you call them, volunteer, I'd go to these meetings and, everyone would be pissed off at stuff. And I thought, and I did warn everyone before I took over that if you get me, it's going to get harsh and rigorous and la-di-da. And so took that on and battled the bank for the money that the
can we say there's a statute of limitations going on this now? Anyway.
Yeah, well, there was...
That a worker stole from an incredibly hard done by small community business. Yep.
Doesn't it always happen though? Anyway, so and I didn't know that walking in. Otherwise, I probably would have. Was that quite major in terms of where Active? She hadn't been discovered then. No.
Oh God.
No. So I walk in thinking this is going to be hard, and then okay. It's going to be really hard.
I'll tell you a funny wee story before we get back to your career at Active. Is when I was about 7th form, I was, let's say, I probably was winning far too many prizes on Active. And I'd go up there on Friday, and the person we're talking about, who was responsible for giving out prizes, bearing in mind I have no involvement with Active other than as a listener, would start telling me that the bigger prizes weren't available or had disappeared or whatever. And then it came out that she had also been kind of keeping and selling and so on, things like that. So just know,
Yeah. Evil. Evil. And the sort of person that likes that horrible music, gothy, evil music. Yeah.
So that happens.
So anyway, but despite that, I got some structure to it. Tried to stop people smoking in the studio and looking after the gear and stop stealing CDs and and all that kind of stuff. That was for the nice glass of water that Lewis is just Pardon me, Mark Cubey, who's the guest on Dr. Tennant's
Verbal
Verbal
Highs.
Highs today. See, I've done radio. The task, and also the university really didn't want active there because, you know, there are people coming and going at all hours and
Prime real estate
in the student union building. So anyway, we managed to move the whole operation down, get it divested. The Active had been under threat earlier under the administration of Michael Walls, the visionary Michael Walls, who managed to set up the station as a separate company. So you know,
with shareholders.
So essentially, it wasn't really a university thing at all by that time, but it still had that perception.
And I guess
in the general
they
populace.
Still had sweet rent there as well.
Yeah. Well, no, it was all right, but it wasn't. You know. Anyway, so I looked at the thing and thought, okay, if we can move downtown and get nice premises downtown, we got the university off our back, and hopefully they'll pay us to get out of there and sweeten a deal, and we can do a entry level deal that won't cost us too much and get a cheap renovation in, and then went into level 6 of the World Trade Centre in Victoria Street, and that helped change the perception that, okay, so it's not necessarily just a uni station anymore.
Hugely.
And
it's not a student market, whatever that means.
You know, you can do all you like, but some things do linger, Gene. And the result of that was, just a different kind of vibe. And
for listeners, for us up there in general, I think around that time also, to the benefit of the move, was it would tie in with that student perception or whatever that market was. Advertisers and so on were just cottoning on to the fact that the kind of indie alternative thing you could throw a lot of money at. Like, I think being a student station really worked earlier than that for certain clients, because at the end of the day, advertising is what keeps radio going. But suddenly, how did someone put it? It became all drum and bass and chocolate milk, and people like Mikey were getting big spends and so on. So another thing then, I mean, you made a lot of pioneering changes then. I thought about, I didn't know the significance of changing the Active logo to @ but that has become a sort of an icon of the modern world, hasn't it?
It took a long time to make that work. Yeah, it was time. The old logo just wasn't cutting it really, and it was the wrong shape. And as design professionals out there will know, if you've got something that's a long horizontal, you can only take that up in size if you've got a sponsorship thing on the bottom of someone else's poster or whatever, and you can only make it so big. But if it's round, it seems much bigger than the other things.
Totally. But also, if it's
round like a record.
In a small town like Wellington, you don't need to write Radioactive. Once the logo gets known, hopefully it's like a certain famous swoosh or whatever, that people see it and they know what it is.
That's right, and it had the little thing that you put inside the 45s, like your Reggae 45s with the centre cut out, and the scary kind of ghost face from Scream.
And so the logo, the move,
computerized, a programming system.
Oh, was that?
Remember that? Remember I got that guy in from Palmerston North for the ad scheduler, because we had a very primitive one that was just a nightmare and kept going down.
Yeah.
And so this would allow us. It was the industry standard is a thing called Selector, which is hideously expensive.
Right.
And, now,
One of probably download now.
One of my biggest mistakes, I think, was doing that, because I think we'd have been much better off just having the ads as keeping it analog, if you like. So having the ads as a digitising them so you could play them off a computer instead of cart machines, which were the
I remember those.
Cart machines, actual tape that you could just go bam, 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 very physical. And I think the more it becomes clicky mousy stuff.
I think that's wrong. You couldn't keep those carts; they wouldn't still be there now. You're saying you shouldn't have digitised the ads?
Oh, look, I think there's a palpable difference, Lewis, between punching a thing,
totally.
and you fizz it with your hands, playing records with your fingers,
absolutely,
rather than mouse clicking on a digital file. It's like, what?
When I came back to New Zealand after many years and did a few shows on B, I was horrified they had the big green button. So they'd gone from exactly what you're talking about, a good live DJ, which doesn't really exist on any other station anymore, is really unique to those, what we used to call student stations. And suddenly, B had the half your playlist, bang, bang, bang button. And you could actually hear it when you're at home. It wasn't, it wasn't as nice, even a second with a good DJ physically makes for a different show.
That's
So-
right, and you can play the records at the wrong speed by mistake, and it's always amusing.
Absolutely.
The other thing that the old Active, this is this is the early 80s time, they had pots rather than faders. So, these are little round things that you can whiz up, and you could either manipulate them like
rotaries.
Nipples or something, and rubber nipples. And I think, that whole physicality.
Tacticality.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just dumb philosophy. But
No, it's not. It's really. I think it's.
So anyway, getting back to that, we went with this quite, a relatively costly and complex programming thing that caused poor old Liam Ryan, the programming manager, much toil having to input all this fucking information that then people don't even bother playing because they're rebels. We would have been much better saying, okay, look, here's a system of cards, colour-coded cards, saying, okay, here's the 20 things that we really want you to keep, play a lot. But once you've played it, put it in this box,
Right.
and then pick a blue one, and it's like, play any cool soul track from the past.
Right,
And you go,
right.
okay. So it would have encouraged people to be more creative
And to sort of dig around and so on.
And the cool people would have shown how they could work that system, and then you keep those people on rather than try to make everyone fit in a square box and punish them for not playing by the rules.
I didn't notice any of that, but
Okay,
yeah,
Hindsight.
hindsight.
Wonderful thing.
So people often don't give themselves the credit. I think you made a huge amount of changes then, and quite radical changes in a very short period of time.
Months. It was 18 months, and I probably was trying to do too much, and I kind of burned out on it. And it was hard, and I was getting paid bugger all.
That's the other thing,
compared to what I had been earning.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Yeah.
I'm doing this for love, but after the love is gone, how do you carry on? And just went to the board and said, look, we really need to recapitalise. To take it to the next level, we need more money, and you just can't finance it out of ongoing advertising. It's not going to happen because Liam was in there, you were in there as breakfast host. We had Andy and Lily doing
You were
stuff.
trying to go to another step.
It was a good team, right?
Yeah.
And we just hired this young guy, fresh off the boat from England, Dave Gibbons, who was really
a good salesman,
good
totally.
London gift
Yeah.
of the gab, know. And I thought, and Miles doing the production creation. I thought, it's solid, man. We've got the foundation, we've established stuff, but to take it to the level of what BFM was doing in Auckland, we need to dilute the shareholding, recapitalise, get a big wad of money in to let us do some serious shit and actually...
Because I know what you're saying, exactly what you're saying. You've taken it to that level on the ground and so on, but
from
for it to go from there was no money.
Well, no. And otherwise you're just going to piddle along as it is, and from mouth to, struggling from...
So it sounds like, I didn't really know this, like you kind of, you say you burnt out, so you took it all quite hard at the end, but then I guess that could have been really difficult, but then Luke kind of came along pretty much straight away afterwards.
Yeah, I got to know Mikey and when as listeners will have heard on the previous
I think
podcast.
most Wellingtonians got to know Mikey quite quickly around that time.
That's good. I enjoyed that. So I've forgotten the stuff about the hairdressing. In fact, I think the first time I realised, listening to your podcast, I realised the first time I met Mikey Tucker, he was washing my hair at Grace in preparation for my cut by Les Dally, who was my hairdresser at the time before I discovered the barbers, rock. And so Mikey came into this young guy comes in saying, "Hey, I want to do a contra with this thing I've got called Wellington Styles," and he wanted to use Aqualung by Jethro Tull as the...
I remember the ad he ended up making.
Yeah, but it didn't. I said you can't use that because he wanted to reading Wellington Styles, and we laughed because I love Jethro Tull, as we all do. But I said you can't do that, and so you made an ad.
Doesn't fit.
And go to know him, and then we did Active and Wellington Styles did the Fashion Awards after party.
Yep.
Don't you remember that?
Totally. Absolutely.
Did Mikey talk about that at all? I can't remember.
No.
No, that was that was the night that Mikey Havoc, swaned in, the big star, Mikey Havoc, and having a good time as is his want, and we had a big coat. It was really well organised, man. You remember the times when you had coat check?
Yeah, totally. No, it was
coat check, and it was flash and sponsors and la-di-da and great. It was a brilliant party, and then unfortunately at the end of the night, Mikey came to get his He was one of the last. Havoc, one of the last.
As is
to
also
leave.
his want.
Yeah, one of the last to leave came together, and someone had taken it, so that was a bit sad.
So you in Wellington, Mikey, for the listeners who don't know, you know.
So I'd left active.
All said and done, big age difference in terms of you perhaps agreeing to do this with this guy. Who is this young guy? Like, what to you seemed like he'd be a great person to work with?
Well, I'm the wise old guy who's meant to know it all. You know, the burnt out crazy, really, as he soon found out. And so I actually got on, but I actually got on board when it was still Wellington Styles, helping them out with that, because there was Mikey and
Oh, I remember him. Yeah,
the other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. They both went to school together.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just one of those senior moments. And they were in this crazy little office in Anvil House, having persuaded the management that they could move in from Johnsonville, because who wants to work there? And they both had Macintoshes, which was good, but they each had their own database. You want one database with everything on it.
Oh, they're competing with each other.
Well, no, it's just my clients are on this and his clients are... No, we'll put them all together and this is how we mail merge and da-da-da-da-da. So
you're saying you automatically walked in and saw what you knew that they could do better.
Because, again, at Active, one of the things... remember the advertising, the play sheets? The advertising play sheets running off FileMaker? Yeah. I did that. Yeah. So technology can change people's lives, and it certainly enabled... instead of being able to do like one proposal a day, Michael could churn out 10 of them.
Adapted to a template, like cover letters for a CV. Yeah.
And hit up lots of people and come across more professional. And anyway, so the whole Wellington Styles thing ended in this terrible debacle of nearly,
which he explained,
nearly going to court and did go to court actually. They tried to take me
print mafia.
Yep. But out of that came the genesis of Loop, starting
so Mikey offered you a role.
No, we were both working on it.
But hang on, so what makes you go from having done Active, again, something that's... It seems like a similar situation that could go take on,
Yeah.
That's what I was getting to many minutes ago, is you seem to have an appetite let's try this.
This is where we fade in that, one of the great songs by Seal.
We're never gonna survive unless we get a little crazy.
You saw it could work.
Mikey's phenomenal. He really he was extraordinary. I'd never met anybody with that energy, vision, and inspirational stuff.
Yeah.
And it was bromance material, really. And I'd love magazines, and I just thought we'll try it. If it works, it works. And it was such a struggle to get the first. Trying to do a full colour, free giveaway glossy, it's insane.
But for anyone younger, also, back when there was huge costs in getting plates and getting printing.
Look, the amount, I think by the end, we were turning over huge money.
Yeah.
And that's what, took the whole thing down in the end. Huge money. But if you're spending, 10 cents, if you're making $1 million, spending $1 million, $1, you're and forgetting, because you got to do tax and stuff. That's not going to work. And I think we got into digital photography, right near the end, but it was still really early days. And just print it, print is just so expensive to do.
Or was, absolutely.
Well, it still is, isn't it?
Well, I think stuff like, as I say, not having to do plates for each page makes it hugely different now, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
straight digital.
I guess it's still a very as even the likes of Fairfax and
for those
who may have seen it's a difficult business.
Again, for those who aren't familiar with Loop, it was particularly glossy, particularly good. What do you call it? Paper stock.
Well, the advertisers, and again, advertisers loved it. Because,
very tight design at the time. What I talked about with Mikey eventually ended up with a CD on it. So in an era where that kind of media was selling, it was doing really well. So,
but you had and again in Auckland you had your pavements, your remixes, and
that's
those things. Well, they just did it better. And they're in Auckland.
Well, that's what I was going to ask with any of this.
They did it more simply. It was we kept changing what we were doing.
Do you think you're making it harder than it needed to be?
Just get a. It's like I talked before about Jeff Marsland, and you think the first thing that most Wellingtonians knew about those guys, him and Tim Rose, was Midnight Espresso. And you can go into Midnight Espresso today. Yeah. Well, we can't because we're in Auckland, but you could go into it if you were in Wellington, and even though it's now Hamish, owns the show,
it's same food, same style, same coffee,
the same look. The menu has tweaks, but a bit more vegan stuff, but. Look, if you get the formula right from the start, don't change it. Just keep it right. But to do that, you've got to have a really strong vision initially and be happy with keeping it.
Why did you never move to Auckland? I just think with a lot of these projects. So with Luke, was there ever a thought, shall we go and compete with Auckland? Or
I've lived in Auckland, but I did like 3 months. On a summer arts program up here, and living on Cubey Pass Road in the house that Rick Bryant had, a big gigantic house, and just hang out there and hot summer. And you walk and it was But
then compared
to Auckland, well, I don't
then
know.
Compared to now, you could launch something from anywhere now. But then the record companies were there, the publishers were there.
No, but I had family here, in Wellington. I had family in Wellington. I had lovers, and living a nice life. And I don't know. I love visiting Auckland, but I've never felt the urge to live here.
It sounds like me, even though I live here.
I'm just one of those boring people that.
A series of projects in 3 months and a year and 2 years here and 3 years here, picking up skills all the way, as you've talked about. Kind of wanderlust, kind of getting bored, kind of seeing potential in new things. Quite a radical change when you get the gig for RNZ. You produce for Kim Hill. How did that turn into 10 years instead of 2 years? Oh, man.
Okay, well, I come off, again, I linked, it's just a quick one. I linked up again after Mikey with Michael Lockhart, for a thing called ARMS, which was like a business skills for creative sector, which, another stupid idea, really, because, going around to people saying, hey, it would be a really good idea to get an email address, and they're going, that'll never catch
keep
on.
all your invoices, Yeah,
that's right. Anyway, that was good for a while. We pumped the government for some money to make that happen, and I think we did. We did some good stuff. Been there, done that. So that was falling apart, and I saw an ad in the paper when they still had ads in the paper, not on Seek, for a 1 year term contract, filling in for the then producer of the Saturday morning program with Kim Hill, Chris Burke, who I know,
New Zealand music guy,
and friend and associate, and. So I rang up, picked up the phone, rang up, and I said, "Do you think I should go for it?" He said, "Hell yeah," because he was taking a year off to research and write within a year his epic history of New Zealand popular music from the 30s onwards, Blue Smoke, and application letter, got the interview, and as is so often, if you get the interview, you get the job, in my experience, and. But interviewed well and went through the rigorous questioning from Kim Hill and
she was on the panel.
Oh yeah,
I suppose she has to be.
Well,
it's an intimate.
Yeah. Well, you can't. It's about chemistry, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I took over from Chris, and it was very formatted, and certain things at certain times, regular slots, and just got rid of Max Cryer, thank God, because waffling on about words that you could just Google to find out the derivations. Move with the times, and I thought, no, I can do this for a year. I don't have to. It's all care, no responsibility. I just have to keep it working within that framework and bring some fun and rock and roll to it. And
but your mind got in and changed it.
Oh well, and also at that stage. The genius Richard Hulse, who was running their web side of things, things were really starting to move in that area, and because of my background with Loop and ARMS and stuff, and I knew how important that is, both as an information source and a
you could see where it was
historical
going.
presence, absolutely. And plus, it saved you time. If we could have a page where I list all the music that we played, I don't have to answer 20 emails going, what was that nice music you played after bloody blah? So
go to
check
the page,
and you only have to tell them once.
Yeah.
And then Anyway, and so that was a lot of fun, and I did that for a year, and then Chris came back having found out that talking to Brian about jazz and the Hawara led to Jim and the Wanganui, who had a shed full of stuff, and it turned into this massive
project
thing, and he hadn't had time to even start the writing. Tried to do both for about 6 months, and then went, bugger it, I'll find a way to live cheaply and finish my passion, my book, and it went on to be the New Zealand Book of the Year at the Book Awards, deservedly so. And so I'd sort of hung around creating a job with Richard for a web production assistant, basically, so helping out, helping try and get everyone else's pages up to the level of Saturday Morning, which was successful in some areas and less so in others, because people just, this web stuff, not going to last.
Kept producing, obviously.
Well, no, I wasn't producing. I was just doing that, and Chris was back as producer, and then and left, and then I went for the job full time and became an employee.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then thinking, I've got, because I still had stuff I wanted to get on. There's still stuff we can do. Got John Cale, stuff like that, exciting, and but not thinking that I'll just do it as my normal kind of trajectory, 3 years or so. And then it just, there didn't seem to be a reason.
So a period of your life,
bills to pay, and by then, I had kids, and by then we had kids, and I got the first year job. I started the day after my son was born. So second child, my son was born. So that George could take a year off. It was perfect, cover for that. And then we had to navigate, two young children, 2 full-time jobs.
Great timing, yeah. I mean,
and security, and you start to think about, well, what else is out there that's more interesting? That's
totally.
not well paid necessarily, but more interesting that fits me, and that didn't come up.
That totally fits you. That's right. That changes all the time, and I mean, I feel similar with the security thing and so on, with having just slogged through a PhD, which I never set out to do. I never thought I'd kind of end up in academia, but it's still that kind of loose, flexible life. You're kind of paid to think. I'm kind of the same sort of thing I've been doing for years, but where I end up will offer me a security I haven't had before.
That's right, and it pulled together a lot of stuff. It pulled together the radio stuff, working with people, crazy ideas, doing the web stuff, and not just Kim. Obviously, working with Phil and assistant hosts and guest hosts and so forth.
So Kim and you, Kim and you. That's correct. That doesn't sound right grammatically. Anyway,
Kim and me,
the both of you. Just you and the team each week sussing what will be on the show?
Pretty much. I mean, the RNZ has the benefit of the InfoFind research library, which also was, around when I was at the Listener. It was part of the NZBC combine, if you like, and then
but
when with RNZ when that all fell apart, or was all sold off or fell apart.
Yeah.
So I would go, okay, we're interviewing so-and-so, InfoFind, what can you find? Because they can get stuff from a range of publications that you can't just Google. And
just like in academic libraries, you can get access to Hansard and so on, which you can't as a member of the public.
Indeed. Yeah. So putting together information that I can give to Kim with a few pointers from me sometimes to say, okay, here's what you need to do and it's going to be this length, and off you go. But
what I was interested with that, what I was going to ask is the collaborative process. So having known you so many years, when I'd listen, I could sort of tell that was something that Mark hadn't. I could tell the ideas that were from your kind of background and so on. Kim did brilliant interviews and so on. How much did she bring to the table in terms of what content or topic she wanted, or was it all up to you?
One of the great things about Kim is she lets you have your head, and most of the time it's down to me to figure out what's going to work. And if there's something she really wants, like Leonard Cohen. I did try. I did try, and other stuff where you just go, oh, well, actually, the moment has passed. Slipped that. Someone else from the station got in first. There's all sorts of reasons why things don't happen.
And then how much?
Sorry, and just trying to. But a lot of the time you end up saying no because you're just getting deluged by offers from all quarters. Oh, this would be great, and my ancient auntie.
So it's up to your. That's a horrible word. I hear too much, but essentially you curating what is on based on good judgment, based on something that might have been cool to talk about 3 weeks ago that feels like it's been covered, based on your contacts, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
And it's a Saturday morning, and you while it's good to do, serious, heavy stuff, you kind of have to do the news behind the news, because people don't, and it's like, people are going to. I mean, the Trump saga is just endlessly fascinating, but when we come to Series 2 next year, if we get that far, I just don't know how much people's appetite is going to be for more analysis of that kind of stuff. So you have to really be thinking, how can you zig where others zag?
You're thinking about. I think what you're saying is you're thinking about it like a good Saturday newspaper back in the day. It's got to have a mix of kind of.
Yep.
Serious content, but not as much as you'd have during the weekend. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so.
And I would be guilty of probably trying to stuff too much in there. To the extent that sometimes you go, well, actually, we've got to get. There's no room to breathe. There's not enough time for music. There's not enough time for email feedback, because actually, we've done our job, and Kim's great, and the guest is great, and we're packing it in there. Like I've done shows where it's 4 hours, right? 4 hours with the news breaks in between of Kim and guests just going for it, and no music at all live.
Because
that's amazing.
Is that up to you on the day in terms of if she's sounding great with someone, just let them keep going?
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't realise you were waving that wand as well. Of like, do you signal to her or something to kind of wind it up, or if you think that you put some music on, or
I could try signalling.
Okay,
doing the finger across the throat, but I'm just there to make stuff happen. She's on air. Everyone thinks she decides everything, from the music to the guest to setting it all
that's
up.
what I need to get to the bottom of. Is
people don't know what producers do. We're just
so you
lurking,
yeah right. So you will cut to something if need be, or tell her to wind it down.
You always have music ready just in case the line goes dead, or someone drops the F-bomb and stomps off. And
that was a great interview, though.
It was, Tom Scott, yeah. But it's having. I guess the thing that kept me there the most, the thing that kept me going for 10 years, was the thrill of putting out a live, or mostly live, some stuff is obviously prepared earlier, program on a Saturday morning, 4 hours, where it's just that thrill of the show, and
which is increasingly disappearing.
Well, and as it started off, you get on a Tuesday little envelopes from listeners with spidery writing, and then it turned to a few emails, and then everyone got on the text and the Twitter, and by the time I left, last year, the right interview, you just get so much instant feedback on what you were doing. I kind of miss that.
Totally. And the other thing there is, having listened to a lot of overseas podcasts, particularly American stand-up comedians, because no surprise they're great raconteurs, is there's similar things being said about Saturday Night Live, rather, which we never really got here, which is that live experience increasingly disappearing, but also very gratifying, I guess, compared to pulling something off where you can kind of edit and tweak and so on and so forth.
I love the edit. It's nothing more. It's great fun when you take a 40-minute interview that you've recorded that ends up 29 minutes because you've taken out all the ums and ahs from the guest and made it really seamless and flow and beautiful.
So she would do stuff in other times of the week if the person wasn't available.
You can't expect everyone to turn up on a Saturday morning, because it's Friday night in London, or 5 p.m. on the East Coast, and
so last question there, just to kind of
sum it up.
Yeah, well, no, just to wanting to know about actually being on the floor there. People being reliable, getting the number right, and so on and so on and so forth. Would you have buffer content ready in case things fell through each day, or was it pretty solid? Kind of meant to.
Oh well, we can always fill. We can always play music. Come and talk for an hour. I can always go on and talk about something.
You think you'll stay in contact with Kim?
Yeah, I've kind of left her alone because it's that thing where you've got to let hi Kim. You've got to let Dita Daboni, who's the new producer, you've got to let her, she's got to own the program, right? Yeah. And you don't want me sort of coming in and thing. But I've been real busy with this new job. I was pretty flat out, and because I left, had a month's notice, left straight into the job at the festival, and coming to grips with how you put on a 50 plus session guest with a gig with
multiple
guests,
sessions,
sessions across multiple venues within a slightly less than a week in March 2018, and how that's going to happen, and what the budget is going to be for that, and who you need to talk to make sure that everyone knows, to get the right ideas and make everyone get everyone on side, which is why I'm in Auckland talking to publishers this week. I mean, we were never friends. We were colleagues.
I wasn't going to mention that because you told me that. Yeah.
Well, no.
They're often the best working relationships.
Well, I think that's why, in one way, we've lasted so long, because we're not. We like each other for sure, but I'm not around her house for dinners or all that kind of stuff, and but now maybe we can be, because. We're not. It was a working relationship, and that meant we could say
totally
whatever we liked to. Well, she could say whatever she liked to me, and I wouldn't get pissed off by it, because it's just that's what talent's like.
I want to get the most out of you in the last few minutes.
Okay,
Kim, if and when she leaves, who do you think in New Zealand's got what it takes to do that spot? There can't be many.
I think I'm looking at him, Lewis.
No,
you're good, man. You're up there, and I think you're. I mean, no, I'm not being fawning here. No, you're good. And
other people in the public.
It's tricky, because I think Colin Peacock of Media Watch is an extraordinary broadcaster who. Probably hasn't been given his due.
The entertainer as well, like Kim, though. I think that's a really great combination.
Colin is so funny. Yeah, he's really clever. He's really fast. He's really funny. Charlotte Graham, who has also on my watch guest hosted in that position for Kim. She's young, and
she guessed it and held it down, which would be even more terrifying than it being your own show.
Yeah, while she was doing her, and she's doing a degree like you did. She's at that stage where it's just intense. And no, she's one. She's extraordinary.
That's a good list. That's a good list.
That's two. That's two or three. Who else? I mean, and there'll be people on Active or B or all these low-powered FM. I think there'll be people out there who I just don't know about yet, and I think people, stuff like the spin-offs. Oh, Simon Wilson is another one. I had dinner with him last night, and the former editor of Metro and writer of some extraordinarily perceptive pieces about the Labour Party and the spin-off at the start of this year. And he's done media stuff for 19. Great voice, really smart. He's someone who could move into that realm relatively easily. But I guess we're always looking for younger folk, aren't we?
I really wonder, and more so now than decades ago. It's particularly noticeable how we end up with the sort of people we've got in our key. Positions on television.
Anika Moa, have you heard her stuff?
Her stuff's great. But I'm meaning on the mainstream channels. It's bizarre what we've got in our kind of key time slots now.
Well, it's stuff that you can sell ads around
and get the biggest audience, I guess.
Yeah,
just quickly, I felt, and proud's the right word. I felt a good feeling when John Campbell was booted from TV3 and he took on public radio, because I'd imagine here's a guy who could have gone to ridiculous figure sums.
I don't think John's ever been about
absolutely
sums, and I think that's the perception, but no, he's not.
No, I don't think that's perception.
It's not the Hosk, I think it's great, because remember he started, his commercial paid job was RNZ.
So he came back to the Nest.
New Zealand. So he came back to the Nest, and I think he had the Saturday morning job. Before Kim.
Oh, really?
It was Brian Edwards. Got rid of him.
So he must
Sharon
have
Cosby
got
rid of Brian Edwards, and John Campbell came in. At that stage, he was doing some stuff for TV3, but then he got the news job, and it was just too much. He couldn't do everything, and
I wonder how those guys
sadly had to give it away.
I wonder how those guys like Garner do 3 different key slots of media in New Zealand. It's bizarre.
Paleo diet. I don't know.
Personal doctor, like Prince and so on. Just lastly, you podcast guy, you listen to them?
No, not
Okay,
really.
well, that's scratched off then.
Apart from yours, Lewis.